Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to my new video. Today we're going to be talking about every Forza Motorsport track that is only exclusive to only one game. So even if a game is available on another game on the same system and it's another one, we're not going to be including those. And we're not going to be including DLC tracks or paid tracks, so this is just the base game tracks. And another thing to keep in mind for is that this list and this video could be updated anytime, as Forza could release a new game or add any tracks, which I don't think will happen, but just to let you know, that is how it's gonna work. But as always, we're gonna get started the actual video. So Forza Motorsport 1 surprisingly has a lot of interesting tracks that are only available in this game, and there's actually a lot of tracks that are only available in this game, which are kind of surprising, and there's a lot to go through. So we're gonna get started the list. So, and one of my favorite tracks in this game that has never been returned to the other Forza Motorsport game was actually Tokyo Circuit. Now, there's a lot of reasons why I do enjoy this track, and it's actually quite weird that this track never came back. And I understand if it's like not the newer games, but like the 360 era, but it never came back surprisingly. And this track, for what it is a pretty long city circuit with a lot of turns and lines, and sure, the roads are kind of not as big and not as wide, but for what it is actually quite fun, and it surprisingly looks very good for a game that came out all the way back in 2005. So overall, it is pretty cool that it is still available in this game, and if you do play it in this game, and especially now, it's still pretty fun game, and this track is pretty fun to race on it, and it does look very good for a game from during this time period. But I think the only reason why they never managed to return this track into other Forza Motorsport games is only because of licensing rights, and also I think in real life this location might have been changed, or some logos might have been changed, so it would actually be illegal for them to make this track, which is kind of going to be a common theme for this video because of this. But unfortunately, that is what it is. Another city circuit that has never been returned into another Forza Motorsport game, but it is also available as like another remake in Forza Motorsport 6 and 7, which is Rio De Janeiro. Now, you always might think it's just like the newer circuit, but the newer version is actually very different, because the newer version has like a lot more turns and spikes and a lot more things to do. While this one, it's a lot more straightforward. It has just a few turns and a lot of straight lines. But to be honest with you, I do enjoy a lot the newer one specifically because it's a lot more challenging, and it's just a lot more breathtaking. And this one, for what it is actually quite cool, and I never understood why they never did it. Now, I did hear this one could possibly be returned because you could still race in this exact location in real life, but that's what I've only heard, so I'm not exactly sure. But I do enjoy the newer tracks, so I think this one could stay in the past, or it could release as a new layout. So this one is okay. Now, this next track is super unique. It is called the Pacific Shipyards. Now, this track is super unique, and it's actually sad, and it's quite sucks that we never got this track back into any other Forza Motorsport game. Now, well, for what it is actually quite fun. But this track is basically like a sprint, so it's not like lap based, but it's basically like one huge line. And throughout this track, you'll be having to drive throughout docks, throughout like parking lots, and even throughout sometimes in the track you'll be driving throughout highways and freeways. And overall, this track is so super fun, and it's super unique for what it is. And it really sucks because we never got this back. And this game has some of these tracks that are like super unique, and it's quite sucks we never got it back. But I think it's another reason why we never got this track back is because of like obvious like licensing rights and bunch of stuff, or maybe it just wasn't available already in real life. Now, I don't know where this track exactly took place, but it does quite suck that we never got this back. But if we did even got like a remastered version of this track, I would love to play it. But unfortunately, it's only available in this game, and this was a unique feature for this game, like sprint circuits and stuff. But unfortunately, never got it. Now let's move on to like circuits, like racing circuits. This one is Alpine Ring, which basically, if you play, is basically like a replica of Spa, like the real Spa. Now, there are quite a lot of differences between this track and Spa. So the real Spa is actually a pretty big track, and this track is a lot smaller. And another thing that I noticed is that this track has a way different background. So like, if you're gonna be racing, you could just see in the video like it has a background of like huge mountains, which is supposed to represent in the European Alps, from what I've assumed. And they only made this track, I think, just because back then, since Forza Motorsport wasn't such a big game, you had to they had to like recreate like some tracks to like represent real life circuits, and I think this was one of them to represent Spa. But I do enjoy this track because it is quite enjoyable, and sure, it's a bit smaller than the actual track, but it is pretty fun because it actually feels extremely different compared to Spa. And I feel like the background is overall is just nicer. And yes, it is similar to Spa, but it's still pretty fun track. And since we already got the real Spa, and since it got bigger, I don't think they wanted to like put this track in other games, which quite sucks because for what it is actually quite fun, but we won't see this again anytime soon, unfortunately. Another track that is kind of similar to the last one, which is Alpine Ring, but it's also kind of different in a sense. But this track is called Blue Mountain Circuit. Now, if you're gonna be playing this track, however, it is gonna be representing Mount Paramera, I think it's supposed to be called. Now, this track is set in New South Wales, Australia, and this track is trying to replicate it, the Blue Mountain Circuit, which, in my opinion, this track is a lot worse than the Alpine Ring, because at least that track actually felt quite different compared to this track. But this track literally feels like exactly the same as the actual track, Mount Paramera. There's only a few differences that are like different compared to actual track. So one of them are like few different turns, and in my opinion, I actually don't really like it. Not because it's bad, but because it's way too similar to the real thing, and it's just a lot more dual kind of compared to the real thing, which I know is set in Australia, but this one, it kind of feels a bit different. And it's way too similar, which is one thing I don't really like about it. And overall, it is pretty fun still to play on it. And I think it's, again, just because back then, since Forza Motorsport wasn't as big as now, they had to recreate track to avoid licensing rights and copyright issues and all that stuff. So that is one reason why I think they only made this track. But should I return it? I don't think so, because we already have the real thing, and this is not as interesting as the other tracks. Now, this track, I'm not specifically talking about the test track itself, but I'm talking about the few layouts and few circuits in this test track that have been removed. So there are two of them. So one of them is actually called the test track oval track, which is basically one of the worst tracks in my opinion in this game for a few reasons. First of all, this track is extremely boring and it's very dual, because it's just grayed out and it's just a big oval, like, you know, like NASCAR kind of style. And it's boring because it's kind of boring. But the background is kind of nice, and it does represent somewhere, I'm assuming in Europe, but that's about it. And this track is just really boring. But this one quite sucks, that never returned, which is called the test track drag strip, which this one quite sucks because for what it is, this is actually a pretty fun circuit. And it does suck. I know we did get like a few other drag strips throughout the franchise, but it does suck that we didn't have as much in this one there in return. But for the track itself, like the actual test track that you're seeing right now, I don't really like it because it's quite boring. But I'm not talking about this one. So this one is not that interesting. Last but not least, we have the New York circuit. Now, In this game, you do have two layouts of New York Circuit, and this is one of them because the other one, which is the shorter version, was made in Forza Motorsport 2 and 3, but this one's only available in this game. And one thing I really liked about Forza Motorsport 1, and that really impresses me so much, is this game has so much city circuits, and unfortunately never got them in other Forza Motorsport games, which really does suck. But this track, for what it is actually quite good because it is way bigger. It is actually fun, and sure, it's bigger, but it is kind of challenging also because there's a bit churns that are like kind of short and kind of like obscure. But for what it is, I really like this track, and it really sucks that we never got this track returned. So that sucks. Alright, that is the exclusive tracks for the original Forza Motorsport game. In Forza Motorsport 2, we only have one exclusive track that has been removed. And it's not like the track environment, but it's a bunch of layouts that have been only available in this game. And that is the test tracks. And in this game, they call it the snake, but it's a bunch of layouts from the snake track or the test track. And they basically just cut in a bunch of like segments so they could be like counted as its own track basically. Now, to be honest with you, I didn't really like it. It's just kind of boring in my opinion, and if you play on like a lot of these tracks, like the test tracks and like segments, they're quite boring because they feel repetitive and it's not as interesting. So I don't really like this track, and to be honest, I'm quite glad it never returns. So that is it for Forza Motorsport 2. So for Forza Motorsport 3, 4, 5, and 6, all of these games do not have exclusive tracks, and for a few reasons why. First of all, it is hard and expensive to design new tracks and get a license from it, and plus, especially the Xbox One era, they try to make everything more realistic, which is both bad and good in a lot of ways. But the good news is both of the newest Forza Motorsport games, which is Forza Motorsport 7 and 8, both of these games do have some exclusive tracks. So let's start Forza Motorsport 7. And this game only has one exclusive track, and it is called Dubai Circuit, which, if you really think about it, it's actually a really cool track, and for a lot of reasons why, there's a lot of good reasons for why it's good. So first of all, if you play this track is absolutely breathtaking and absolutely looks amazing for a game that came out even just less than a decade ago. It looks absolutely amazing, and I also really like it because the track is also really big, so like you'll be driving throughout a lot of turns and stuff, and it's also kind of challenging, especially if you're going through like the higher like mountains part of the track, which in my opinion that is actually really cool, and I do wish we actually got more stuff like that so we could have like a lot more biomes throughout the track, and it just looks very unique, and overall it's a really fun track to play through in my opinion. But I only think why it's only available in this game just because this was like a showcase track that was like used in the game's demos and all the like advertisements and all that stuff, so they could show like how beautiful this game is. But unfortunately it never come back, but for what it is actually a really cool track. So yeah. Now that is it for the Motorsport 7. Now let's move on to Forza Motorsport 8. Now, this game has a good amount of tracks that have actually only been available in this game, which is quite surprising to be honest. But, and again, this could be outdated in the future because it's the newest one. There could be a new game, but like I just said, this game has quite a few tracks. And let's start with one of my favorites, which is only available in this game as of currently, and that is called Hakone Circuit. Now, this track is actually pretty cool. I do really like this track for a lot of reasons why. First of all, I know it's a bit more straightforward in terms of like the turns and all that stuff, because yes, it does have a lot of like few turns and a lot of like straights, like points, but I do like it because it works pretty well for all car classes. And also I do like the background because it looks cool and it does represent Japan, at least in my opinion. So overall it does look nice, and it's a shame we never got this in other games, but I'm at least glad we have it in this game. So this track is really fun, and I absolutely love this track. So this track is my favorite in this game. So yeah. Now this track, however, it's a less special because I think it's a real life based track, and it's called Eagle Speedway. Now, it's not a bad track to say, but it's a lot it's basically basic, and it's not that interesting because it's an oval track, and it's only used for NASCAR and very few championships in real life, and it's not really used in this game, which kind of makes sense since it's an oval track, but I just feel like it's kind of boring, and if they never returned it in another Forza Motorsport game, I wouldn't really care because we already have a lot of it. So it is kind of boring, and it's not that interesting, at least in my opinion. So that's my opinion for it. Now this track, it's called Kyalami Grand Prix. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly, but I actually do really enjoy this track for a lot of reasons why. Now, if you play this game, you usually never really play it that much because there's a bunch of other tracks in this game, and the track list in this game is pretty impressive. But I do enjoy this track quite a lot because it's one of the first times we ever got this track, and since I'm not really a sim racing player, it's really cool to see a lot of these unique tracks from all over the world, especially like real life ones, and especially new ones that we only get in this game and few games, which is one thing I really like about this track. And overall, the track is really fun, and sure, it's a bit challenging, and overall it's pretty fun, so I do enjoy it. So yeah, that's my opinion about the track. Now this track, however, it's called Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. It's a weird name, but okay. But this track, it's also a bit more basic, but it's also kind of hard because there's a lot of tight turns and a lot of like challenges you have to go through throughout the race, which is kind of what I like about it. And one thing I do like about this track is it works well for all car classes, because some tracks work pretty well for like one car class or some other, but this track, it works pretty well for even all the way from lower to highest, which is one thing I do like about this track. And also there is a lot of layouts for this track, so like there's like a shorter version, there's like the longer version, so that is one thing I do like about this track. And it is pretty unique because it is another real life racing track, because it works pretty well for this game, and overall it is pretty fun. And again, I do like this track, and I would want to see return it into another racing game. Now this is my least favorite track in this game in my opinion, but it is called Grand Oak Raceway. Now I don't really like this track, not because it's bad necessary, but because I just feel like it's kind of basic. It's pretty basic in my opinion, and it's also pretty boring because I know this track is meant for like smaller car classes or like beginner drivers in this game, which yes, makes sense, but if you actually play this track, it is kind of boring and it's not challenging at all. And also the roads are way too wide, so it makes it very easy. Now you might think that's a good thing in some cases, yes, but in other times it just makes it not that interesting and basically kind of boring, and it's basically super easy and it's not that interesting. The background is also very boring, so overall I don't really want to see this track return, but if you like it, then yeah, it's definitely cool, but it's not that interesting. So yeah, that's my opinion about it. Alright, that is it for all of the exclusive tracks that are available in every single Forza Motorsport game. We went through quite a lot of tracks, which is quite crazy, but yeah, that is it for this list. Let me know if you guys want me to do more videos like this, or let me know your opinions about this video in the Forza tracks down below. I love to read it. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think about it again. But as always, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. Until next time, peace out, guys.